I'm AJ.
I'm Spooky.
I'm Randy, and this is Bourbon, Wine, and True Crime, a podcast where three charismatic but socially awkward friends sit down once a week to drink together virtually and discuss spooky season because it is spooky season. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
There. I'm just saying, sunny feels a little bit too bright for spooky season. So I feel like I need to rebrand just for this month. Then we'll get full back to glitter vomit back in November.
Awesome. I'm here for it. Let's do it. So we're calling you Spooky.
Spooky. We just start making up nicknames every time, just throw everybody off.
Sure. Just different ones. Do you love the people who give themselves their own nickname?
It's so weird.
Where they're like, everyone calls me Skittles. And you're like, do they? Who?
Do they, though?
Who calls you Skittles?
Mm-hmm.
You can't get them to stop. Well, to be fair, I gave myself my nickname, but that's just because I got sick of everybody constantly mispronouncing my name.
How do you mispronounce your name? I mean, you don't have to say it, but like.
They always called me Amanda.
Oh, I can see that.
And I just got very frustrated with it at a very young age.
Yeah. Just where we live, my name is never pronounced correctly. I mean, they say it, they say the name right. It's just the pronunciation is always Latino. And I'm like, my girl, you know, it's okay.
I've had that happen before. My name sounds a lot prettier when you say it with the accent. I'm like, oh, could you imagine me, the whitest of white, introducing myself with this Hispanic sounding name? I
know, exactly. I'm like, I don't deserve that. Like, I still get asked all the time. Like, I'm born and raised here, and they're like, are you really, where are you from? And I'm like, here.
Still here. It's still here.
It's always been
here.
I
love the, are those your real eyes or are they contacts? Like, first of all eyes are real. But yes, those are my eyes.
There are people with absolutely fabulous glass eyes,
but they're still a real eye. Like does
it
still make sense? Like,
well, it's sort of like when someone comments on your chest and they're like,
exactly,
are those real? And you go, no, they're imaginary.
Exactly. That's exactly my point.
Thanks for asking.
Did you dream them up? Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
Okay. Well, so ladies, since we totally agreed on a beverage and only one of us did that, and I say that accusingly, like I'm the one that followed it.
Yeah, you did not.
What
are we drinking?
Some people.
Yeah, some people, not to be named. What are you drinking, Spooky?
I am drinking a totally amazing on-brand wine called Witch's Brew, and it is a spiced red wine that you can drink room temperature, or you can drink it a little bit warm, little glühwein action, and it's so good.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. I need that in my collection. Witch's Brew. Show us the bottle. Let's see the bottle.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Super spooky.
That would be a fun poster.
Nice.
It's gorgeous. I'm obsessed. And again, I have several bottles in my wine fridge for when a certain someone will be here in like 2 days.
I'm so excited.
I'm so jealous.
I wish you were there.
I know.
Wish you were coming, but you got to save your days.
Yes.
So I can. Days. What are you drinking there, Randy?
I'm drinking a Bloody Mary. And
nice.
You can see the little pumpkin and bats down there. Maybe.
Oh, cute. Lift it up a little. There it is.
I love it.
So do you make your own recipe? Did you follow a recipe? Did you buy a mixer? What'd you do?
I followed a recipe, but it was just clamato, vodka, and then like celery salt and pepper. And then
nice. I like to throw a little pickle juice in mine.
Ooh, I'll have to try
them. Pickle juice is on point.
Pickled asparagus, and then I got olives with blue cheese.
So it is like a drink with a snack.
Which I'm full.
It's not a meal. What are you doing?
At Twin Peaks, I love theirs that they serve it with like a huge piece of bacon in it.
Oh,
and the bacon I know. Well, I'm so sorry. Don't be rude. Don't yuck my yum. Don't yuck my yum.
Turkey bacon.
Don't yuck my yum.
No,
and that bacon that bacon absorbs that Bloody Mary, and oh man, it's good.
I forgot the bacon for this one. I didn't feel like defrosting it.
No,
AJ, what are you drinking?
Well, I did not go purchase the Bloody Mary stuff like I had intended to do because it was a crazy week. But I am kind of sticking to the brunch theme since we are recording a lot earlier than we normally do.
Yeah.
But that's still no excuse to not drink. So I have a beautiful mimosa that I made with some Prosecco and orange juice in my very schmancy, sparkly teeny glass because I'm that way.
That is such a cute glass.
Also, none of my other glasses were cleaned. So this is what I went with.
You know what?
It worked out.
It works out.
So
we are on a roll for brunch, and I apologize for my background. It's scary in and of itself because it's my house, but that I can't fix it, guys. So it is what it is. I'm sorry you have to stare at my blinds.
We tried.
We tried very hard. For 30 minutes, we tried.
Yeah. So Edward brought up something. We never recorded why we took that like long hiatus. Because we talked about it, but it was one of the episodes that we just were using to practice editing. So just real quick. I deployed to Iraq for 9 months back in September. And so I didn't realize how crazy my schedule was going to be. I was working 12-hour days, 7 days a week for 9 months straight. But we came back
with no alcohol.
There was just I brought my mic and everything, and there was just nowhere to record. Like the sound quality would have been really bad. And I also had no time because I would have either had to stay up late or get up early because the time difference was, I think it was like 11 hours, 11 or 12.
It was, I think 10 from me. I think
it would have been just the complete opposite of a day and night. Like,
Yep.
So on top of having no time off, no weekends, it was just not feasible to do. I thought that we were going to be able to make it work, but there was just no way. So I'm back from my last deployment because I am getting out of the Army soon. I think I have 15 months before I retire. Just holding on.
It's going to go by so fast.
It fucking better start going by fast because this past year has been dragging.
It's going to go before you know it. It's crazy. We're just glad you're back. We're glad that we're all back together and the gang's all here.
Relatively same time zones almost.
Sort of.
The next one,
way closer than the other ones.
I'm going to wear this onesie, which just giving you a little teaser. Are those bloody fingers? They might be.
They might be.
So today we are talking about Bloody Mary. I have a little bit of history. And then AJ, I think you got the spooky stories.
I do.
And then Sunny, you were doing something.
I am here. And
she is participating
in existence. And what I am doing is I am doing a couple little throwbacks to stories that you would tell to each other when you were at a sleepover and parents had turned the lights out.
I am really excited for that.
I can't wait for that.
So I have two. They're short, but they're goodies.
I'm excited.
Yes.
I have a little anecdote for that when we get to that part. That's just, you're going to die.
One of them is, and I don't know if she's listening, but I have a childhood friend that I met when I was 2 years old. And she really liked to tell me one of these every time I spent the night at her house. And I was a child that got weirded out by the Pocahontas face on the tree, like nightmares about that.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't do well with anything weird. And she's like, cool, I'm going to scar you forever. So, I'm here to do the same for you.
Well, that's how I feel after watching Smile, which was incredibly creepy. But so I'm going to get into the historically accurate part of Bloody Mary. Surprisingly, there was
let's get to it.
Let's get to it. So I'll go into it a little bit. I'm really going to focus on one person because that's who's most likely believed to be where the Bloody Mary, urban legend came from. So the real Bloody Mary is thought to originally be Queen Mary Tudor I of England. And if you ever watch the Tudors, you know a little bit about her. So Mary was born to King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon on February 8th of 1516 in Greenwich Palace in London. So like I said, if you know anything about King Henry VIII, or if you watch television series The Tudors, or if you read any of the books by Philippa Gregory, you'll remember that he basically threw England into chaos because he wanted to divorce his wife to pursue the much younger Anne Boleyn. Now, this dude, I didn't realize like what a fucking dick he was.
Kind of reminds me of someone we have in our immediate history.
Well, I don't know if this is don't get us sued. I don't know if this is
I do have a historical question.
What's up?
And is Queen Elizabeth II, rest in peace, is she Queen Elizabeth II because she's named after this Queen Elizabeth I, or is she named the second because of her mother?
I don't
know. Oh, I know this. I just read about this.
I'm very curious.
Okay, so I just read a whole thing on, because they weren't sure whether or not Philip was going to change his name, which it looks like he's going to. So there's certain royal names that are considered suitable for if you're actually the king or queen. And so Elizabeth is one of them. And I know the name that Philip was thinking about, it was sort of like, oh, is he going to take it because the first was somebody who was horrific, and they were like, that might be bad luck. But essentially Elizabeth is one of the names that and Mary, and I don't know, there's a few of them, right, who like these are appropriate to take. And so I don't know why, I don't know who made this like famed list of things that you're allowed to be, but if she does, like, you know, if however she chose it, it has to do with like this approved list of names and not your actual names.
Huh.
Okay.
That is interesting. I didn't know that. It's also interesting.
You keep saying Philip, do you mean Charles?
Yes, that's
okay.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
He's already been doing some interesting things. But
I don't went on Philip for some reason. Don't know why, but yes.
I was gonna ask because Queen Mary married King Philip of Spain. So I was like, did he change his name?
Henry is also a popular one. We're just gonna say names. We're just gonna say random male names until we're correct.
Okay. So I'm not sure if this is still true for Catholicism, but in the 1500s, you could not get a divorce. It wasn't a thing. And at the time, England was a Catholic nation, so King Henry got creative. Before their marriage, Catherine of Aragon was married to Henry's older brother, but the brother died in 1502, which was very soon after the wedding, and it was before it was even consummated. So in order to take care of her, Henry agreed to marry Catherine after he took the throne in 1509. Now, he also, it was actually really complicated that he had to get permission to marry Catherine, but I'll get into in a second. So the most important thing for a king and a queen at the time was having a male heir to succeed to the throne. But by 1529, remember they've been married for 20 years at this point. By 1529, there's still no male heir. That was when Henry decided that his marriage to Catherine actually wasn't legitimate. And since she had been married to his brother, it was technically incest. 20 years they've been married.
Seems legit.
Yeah. So after 20 years of marriage, he tried to get their marriage annulled. Royal marriage annulments had happened in the past, but the problem with Henry was that he had gone to the Pope before his marriage to get special permission to marry his brother's widow, which is how the marriage even happened. And then 20 years later, he's like, yeah, actually, I don't like this. You fucking asshole.
I don't like this.
I don't like this. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole that is King Henry VIII and his 6 marriages. But so we'll get back to Mary in a second. When the Pope wouldn't give the annulment, Henry decided that England wasn't a Catholic nation after all, and he formed the Church of England. I'm not sure if this was the start of the Protestant church or if Henry chose an existing religion that allowed for divorce, but either way, he was able to divorce Catherine and marry Anne Boleyn. All right, now back to Mary. Mary was Catherine's only surviving child, and when her father divorced her mother, she was declared an illegitimate child, and her title of princess was stripped from her, and she became Lady Mary, and she was separated from her mother. So if that's not a villain origin story, I don't know what is.
An amazing
I don't
origin
either.
story.
Yeah. So she always refused to acknowledge the Church of England.
Talk about a reason to commit patricide.
Yeah. I'm surprised. Well, she might have if she had the chance. She's kind of like, I want to root for Mary, but she did some pretty shitty things. So she refused to acknowledge the Church of England or that her mother's marriage was illegal. And in 1553, after Henry's only male heir, which, side note, he had 6 wives and he produced 1 male heir, methinks it's not the women's fault. But Henry's only male heir, King Edward VI, died just 6 years into his reign. Mary saw her opportunity and stormed London with an army. She had a ton of public support, and after she took the throne from the Lady Jane Grey, who was Protestant and was named as the heir to the throne by King Edward VI, her first act as the first single queen of England was to execute Lady Jane Grey. She married King Philip II of Spain and quickly began reversing her father and stepbrother's anti-Catholic policies. And in 1955, about 2 years after she took the throne, she brought back an old law called Heretico Comburendo, which punished heretics by burning them at the stake. Now, it seems like she thought she could just like make an example out of a few people and then everyone else would fall back in line, but it didn't happen like that. In the 3 years that Mary began the executions, between the years that Mary began the executions and her death in 1558, over 300 Protestants were burned alive at the stake, including the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer, Bishops Hugh Latimer and Nicholas Ridley, as well as hundreds of citizens, of course, mostly the poor ones. So all that's like really shitty, but it's interesting that Mary was named the Bloody One, since her father is thought to have ordered the executions of between 57,000 and 72,000 of his subjects, including 2 of his 6 wives. And
Christ,
that's a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Her half sister,
she's Bloody Mary.
It's interesting. Well, we kind of touched on that during we were talking about Elizabeth Bathory, the blood countess, and they're like, they think it's, I mean, we know that this isn't made up, like there's historical documentation of this, but with the blood countess, it's thought that it was just like the king owed money to her husband's estate and they needed to get rid of her. Oh, but so Queen Elizabeth, who took over after Queen Mary, which was Elizabeth, they were half sisters. She had 183 Catholics hanged, drawn, and quartered. So they were just a bloody ass family. The Tudors were terrible.
I'd say there's some genetic predisposition for things, maybe.
Some of that going on. But that is a quick rundown of Queen Mary, who is thought to be Bloody Mary.
Nice. Yeah, she you want to root for her, but at the same time what she did was terrible, and her father was not a nice man.
I feel like she could have
Go ahead, Sunny.
dealt with I think she could have like dealt with maybe like a life coach that's like, why don't we think about some positive intent? Water under the bridge. Let it go.
Well, imagine being in England at that time, because you have King Henry VIII, who's a dick, and then you have Queen Mary, who's killing people, and then you have Queen Elizabeth, who's killing people. And I don't know who took over after Elizabeth, but it's just like, it must have really sucked.
You were either born privileged or not. That was it. And even being born privileged, you weren't safe.
It's all crapshoot.
Clearly, because the king is like, you know what? I don't like Catholicism, so
I like the idea of
not
some
letting
like
me do what I want to do.
Random, like super optimistic person. It's just like, hey, how are things going? They're like, well, there's never a dull day. Each day is different. Just what a privilege it is to have that level of spontaneity in your life, right?
There's Ebola in the next village. Everything's fine.
I was thinking
not Ebola, but Black Death. I'm sorry, the Black Death. That's what I was trying to come up with. Yeah, the Black
Plague.
Hemorrhagic fever.
I was talking to Ernesto about like some of the shit that's going on in the U.S. The past couple months, and I was like, I want to go somewhere where I can maintain my body autonomy, and he was like, well, Colorado is safe, and it reminded me of a line from the Tudors where Anne Boleyn is like trying desperately to get pregnant. And they're like, but the king gave you all this land and all these things and all these titles. And she goes, the king giveth and the king taketh away. I was like, I feel like that's how we are here, is based on who's in charge, is our lives
things change.
Yep. But
it's
and they used to believe like that medically that like sperm could never be the issue with infertility. So they never tested men, like, because they were like, no, it's always women. It's always women's faults. Like they believed this to be a medical truth. And so when they finally started checking out those two-headed swimmers that were going in circles, then they were like, oh, weird.
Well, even they figured out that the sperm decides the gender of the baby.
Yeah.
But
it's never,
I agree.
It's the king
born with what we've got.
Yeah,
that's our contribution.
That's all we get. We don't get any more. We don't get to make it anymore. There is an expiration date.
I saw a really good meme that gives me like hope for future generations is, if you're a single mom, you need to choose better. And if you got divorced, you need to choose better. You need to like make your marriage work. You need to stay and you need to, but it was basically like men have been telling women for years to choose better. And we said, all right, bet. And then the next one was an article about the rise of single, lonely men who can't get into a relationship. Like, we want emotional maturity. We want, people that understand their feelings and can talk about them and can reciprocate.
And can communicate.
Big one.
Oh, so many things. So many things.
All the things. We are so off topic. It's okay.
It's fine. Okay. So Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary. Do we want to do some spooky stories or do we want to do some silly stuff?
Let's do spooky.
Okay. So for my segment, I looked up some Bloody Mary true crime cases. So what are some instances in history where truly a Bloody Mary was the culprit? And I found some really great stories, including one that we're going to recover from episode 1. So if you had joined us from the very beginning, I'm not going to cover that case, but Mary Bell was one that came up. And so we are going to go back sometime and revisit that case because that was a very cool case. It was not well. Things are not well with Mary Bell. But today we are going to cover, her name is, I'm going to find it in just a second.
Suspense.
Mary Ann Creighton, born in a long time ago. We're going to go way back in our time machine so her name is Mary Frances Avery. I'm sorry, Mary Frances Avery Creighton. I was looking at the wrong thing. We're going to go back 100 years ago to the United States, and her criminal nickname was, maybe you can help me pronounce this, Borgia. Borgia or Borgia?
Borgia.
Yeah.
If anybody out there knows,
Bougie.
Send me a pronunciation guide. Okay, so this is Bloody Mary, and they called her Borgia. This is a sordid story and trigger warning. Okay, so this has child sex abuse. So if you are not one to want to, if that's a hard thing for you, you might want to skip ahead to Spooky Sunny's segment and skip this one. Okay, so that's my trigger warning for you there. Okay, child sex abuse happens here. All right, so this is a sordid story of child sex abuse, money, parental neglect, and a disturbed woman who may have killed 3 people, including her own brother. Mary Frances Avery was born in New Jersey in 1898. She married John Creighton and had a daughter, Ruth. In 1923, Mary and John were arrested for the death of her brother, Raymond Avery, who was poisoned by a lethal dose of arsenic. Man, way to give away the lead. Mary Frances was named as the beneficiary in his insurance policy and also inherited her brother's trust fund. She was acquitted after a trial in Newark, New Jersey, the same year. Newark, New Jersey. Within days after the verdict, Frances was so she's acquitted, and just days later, she's arrested again for the murder of her father-in-law. She's got a list going. But
she's
being a
busy
woman,
she's efficient.
She's very efficient. It's the 1920s. She's a woman, think like Chicago. She's found not guilty So she's acquitted of her brother's murder, and she's found not guilty of killing her father-in-law.
Did her father-in-law die after her brother?
Yes.
Like after she was acquitted?
No, he died before she was acquitted, but after his actual death.
Interesting.
In the small town of Baldwin, the Creightons became friends with a couple named Everett, who was 37, and Ada Applegate, 34, who lived in the house next door to them. Everett was an investigator with the Unemployment Bureau, but made little money. It was the 1930s at this point. It was the height of the Great Depression in America, when money was scarce and jobs were hard to come by. In order to save money, the Applegates moved in with the Creightons. So now we're cohabitating. We have two couples living together. It's Great Depression. Everybody's very desperate. Mary's daughter Ruth, who is now 14, and the Applegates' daughter's the Applegates' daughter Agnes was 12. They had to sleep wherever they could find in the cramped little house. So for a time, they chose the attic, which was cold and filthy. Within a few weeks, however, Ruth found her way into Everett's and Ada's bed. Now, it is said, I don't know if it gets into it in this particular one, but Ada, so the Ada and Everett, Ada was a very large woman. She was very bedridden. She was, for lack of a better term, she was very overweight and somewhat obese. And so she would like sit up to eat, or she would sit up and like yell at her husband. She was a very large woman in a very small bed with her husband. So now Ruth, Mary's daughter, finds her way into their bed. And soon Everett, the husband that they're living with, began having sex with Ruth. Now, I would like to interject here that is not having sex. That is rape.
Thank you.
That is not consensual by 14. Nope. But that wasn't enough. Her mother, Mary Frances, joined in on the arrangement. Although she later claimed that she was unaware, I just didn't know. She was unaware that her daughter was having a sexual relationship with Everett. Again, it's not a relationship. It's rape. Mary Frances also later testified that she knew Agnes, Everett's own daughter, and Ruth were in Everett's bed the same night.
Ugh.
Oh, I hate
For her own role.
Oh, I hate it.
Mary claimed that Everett forced her into sex by threatening to reveal her murderous background to everybody. So the story goes that Mary had confided in Everett and told him that she had indeed killed her brother and her father-in-law. And so he's like, well, if you tell on me for this, I'm going to tell on you for that.
I think that's kind of backwards. Like, I feel like you'd have to be in an intimate relationship with somebody to be comfortable disclosing something like that.
Yeah, saying something like that.
Yeah, I agree too. So I think that those two were also having relations. I think he was in a relationship with Mary Frances. His wife was very big. He was molesting these two teenage girls. He was a lot happening. He was a piece of shit. And so was Mary Frances. In September 1936, Ada Applegate complained of being sick. She was later taken to a local hospital where she was examined and sent home. Several days later, Ada died at home of unknown causes. It was suspected that it could have been pneumonia. However, tendencies of Mary's relatives to die suddenly and without explanation reached the offices of Nassau County's district attorney's office, and an investigation was begun. An autopsy of Ada Applegate showed a massive dose of arsenic, a substance that was often used in poisoning deaths in the late 19th and early 20th century. And granted, like, arsenic is a woman's choice of murder. It's clean, it's easy, it's quick. 1920s, 1800s.
You could literally, you could buy it at a drugstore.
You could buy it at a drugstore.
I have a rat problem.
Easily attainable. Exactly. Rat poison. That book that Spooky gave me about the Poisoner's Handbook, and like how arsenic really was the catalyst of launching like forensic science and like testing for chemicals and autopsies. So now, unfortunately, Mary Frances decided to do this at like the cusp of this kind of science. And so in fact that they could find the traces of arsenic. The ubiquitous use of arsenic in murder cases has always mystified criminologists for several reasons. Arsenic has many problems associated with its use as a means of death. The foremost problem is that arsenic is easily detected at post-mortem examinations, even in minute quantities.
When they're doing them.
Human body
when they're doing them.
Yeah, when they're doing the autopsy. So, a little bit of background, not to digress, but after her brother died, they did exhume the body of her father-in-law, and then she was still found not guilty. So it's, she's a woman, she's a white woman with privilege. They're going to find her not guilty.
If you want to see a delightful play involving this, Arsenic and Old Lace is amazing. I was in it once. It was fabulous. Also, I know I have recommended this book before. I can't recommend it enough. The Poisoner's Handbook, The Rise of Toxicology
that's what I just
and the
said.
Medical Examiner. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's,
pay attention, Spooky Sunny.
I like to give that book to everybody. It's amazing.
You did. You gave it to me and I read it.
There you go.
That's where I get my knowledge from.
Is arsenic the one that some people can smell like it smells like almonds? Or no, wait, is that cyanide?
No, that's antifreeze. Isn't it?
No, antifreeze is sweet.
Oh, that's Gatorade. That's sweet.
I think arsenic does have an
I don't know. Google it.
I can't remember. Yes.
Google it. Okay. So the foremost problem is that arsenic is easily detected at post-mortem examinations, even in minute quantities. Although the human body maintains a natural level of arsenic, and this fact has been utilized as a trial defense, it is a simple procedure to measure these levels to refute that claim. It is also difficult to measure exactly how much of a drug to use, since people have different tolerance to arsenic, thereby forcing the killer to use a large amount and virtually assuring its detection later on. Since a large amount can be instantly discerned by the victim, the killer often resorts to chronic poisoning. So microdosing, instead of like one large dose at a time, there's like a series of microdosing that happens that will slowly kill the victim.
So I looked it up. Cyanide can smell like bitter almonds, not arsenic.
Cyanide. Okay. Nice. I'm allergic to almonds, so if I smelled almonds, I would just stay away from it anyway. So hopefully I'll never be killed by cyanide.
So go with arsenic if anyone's upset with Andrea.
There we go. Taking notes. Okay, good. My husband's not in the room. Okay.
Don't worry, I texted him. It's fine.
That's okay, cool. Using many doses of small amounts over a period of time. In almost all arsenic poisoning cases, the events follow a similar predictable pattern: sudden, unexplained death, suspicion, examination of the body, discovery of arsenic, and arrest of friend or family member. That is exactly what happened in the Crichton case. On January 12th, 1936, Mary Frances Crichton and Everett Applegate went on trial for their lives in Nassau County Criminal Court. Dr. Alexander O. Gettler, a toxicologist for the medical examiner's office for the city of New York, testified that he found traces of arsenic in Ada Applegate's body, which led them to believe that her corpse contained 11 grains of substance. It was generally agreed that 3 grains could be considered a lethal dose. So 3 is lethal. She had 11.
Jeez.
I mean, talk about overkill.
We are confirmed.
Confirmed. John Creighton also took the stand and claimed no knowledge of almost anything. I had no idea. She told me she was 18. He said he didn't know, and he didn't believe his wife had anything to do with the murder. Dr. Richard H. Hoffman, a prominent New York psychiatrist, testified that Mary Frances was legally sane at the time of the event. But the highlight of the trial came when Mary Frances herself took the stand in her own defense and instead gave the court a performance that doomed her forever. On January 22nd, she marched to the witness stand, confident of her own innocence. At first, she said that she had nothing to do with Ada's death. She told the jury that Everett, the husband, put some sort of white powder in Ada's eggnog just before her death, and this happened several times. Careful not to mention Mary Francis's prior murder trials, District Attorney Elvin Edwards pressed on. So I did a little bit of reading about that, and he had asked the judge to present that evidence from those two other cases, and the judge denied it. And I got to kind of side with the judge on this one because she was acquitted and found not guilty, even though she had done it. I don't think that would have gone over well with the jury,
right.
if they're like, well, she was found not guilty.
Precedents like that of like randomly throwing other crimes up there, like, yeah.
I mean, it's now in the US, they don't let you do it.
They don't let you do it. I think that they should if you're found guilty. But if you are found acquitted, even if you are guilty, but she was acquitted and found not guilty, I think that would have been more work for the DA. It's a slippery slope. I don't think you can go there. But I'm not a lawyer. I'm, far from it. But where was I? Okay, so the eggnog. He put a bunch of stuff in her eggnog several times. So careful not to mention Mary Francis's prior murder trials, District Attorney Elvin Edwards pressed on. He brought up Mary's previous statements, which were inconsistent with her testimony, and said the motive for the murder was insurance money and Everett's sexual desire for Mary's teenage daughter. Right. When asked if she took a glass of milk that contained arsenic to Ada, Mary Francis admitted that she had done that. Quote, "Yes, I did. Applegate told me," she answered. The lawyer says, "Knowing this, you took her to drink?" Quote, "Yes," she responded. "You stood by and watched this woman who was your best friend die." Quote. I think that's a little dramatic because they were not best friends by any stretch of the imagination. It's a little flare because there was another instance that I read that Ada was in the same bed as her husband and those two, his own daughter and Mary Francis's daughter, Ruth, when he raped the two girls. Ada was in the bed. So I don't see Mary Francis and Ada being best friends. I think that they were both I think that Ada was probably a very vulnerable, mean woman, and she couldn't go anywhere.
That's what I was thinking, because what could she do? She couldn't leave the bed.
No,
It's already
anything.
Hard being a woman during that time. Probably couldn't. If you can't get out of bed, you can't get a job. You can't support yourself.
Yeah, she could leave.
There was not a whole lot of jobs for women. She couldn't get out of bed. It said that she was very mean to her husband, but
her husband sounds like a dick.
I'm sorry. Take a handkerchief and wipe your tears. Move on.
Next, I mean, even if she did know, which you would think if it's in the same bed she did, and she hated it, what are you going to do? Are you going to leave me? Because you can't.
So after this line of questioning, and Mary Francis admits that yes, she did give her the eggnog, she did give her the milk, knowing that her husband had put some white powder, or not her husband, but Ada's husband had put white powder in the eggnog. She knew that, and that was enough for the jury. Although Everett Applegate also took the stand, his testimony was no better, admitting to the sexual relationship abuse with Mary's 14-year-old daughter, but denying almost everything else, including a trip to the drugstore where he and Mary Francis had purchased the rat poison. At 12:47 a.m. on January 25th, 1936, a jury found Mary Francis and Everett Applegate guilty of first-degree murder. A sentence of death was mandatory. Mary Francis began crying immediately, while Everett remained stoic. At sentencing, Everett Applegate asked to make a statement. Can't wait to hear this. He told the court, "I knew nothing and had nothing to do with the administration of arsenic poison. And in addition to that, I have never at any time had misconduct of any character with Mrs. Crichton." That comes from the Times, January 31st, 1936.
But I raped two
rarely
children.
have I never whap with a white glove.
I didn't have sex with the adult, but I raped the two kids. Got it.
Yeah. Within an hour, they were both on their way to Sing Sing prison and a date with death. So they were both given the death penalty. Over the next few months, appeals were filed on her behalf, but all failed. A date of July 16th was set for the executions. As the date approached, Mary Frances became seriously ill. She collapsed several times and her legs appeared paralyzed. She could not eat and lost a great deal of weight. A commission of 5 doctors was appointed to investigate her medical condition. The day before the sentence was to be carried out, the commission reported that Mary Frances was suffering from hysteria as a result of her impending death. We find, quote, we find no evidence of organic disease of the central nervous system as the body as a whole, or the body as a whole, quote. The head of the medical team reported. In other words, Mary Frances was healthy enough to be executed. On July 16th, 1936, in the evening hours, Warden Laws.
Sentence one more time. just once more, just real quick.
Quote, we find no evidence of organic disease of the central nervous system or the body as a whole, quote, the head of the medical team reported. In other words, Mary Frances was healthy enough to be executed.
That's what I thought you said. Excellent. We can continue on. All right.
Okay. She was just suffering from hysteria.
Heaven forbid you were sick on your execution day. What a shame that would be.
What a shame. Oh, can't do it till tomorrow.
Nope.
He's got a fever.
Got the sniffles.
Got the sniffles. It's COVID. Maybe that'll take her. On July 16th, 1936, in the evening hours, Warden Laws permitted their respective families to say goodbye to Mary and Everett. Applegate's father and stepmother came to visit, and he was able to have a brief meeting with his son. Quote, I said goodbye, Ev, and he said, goodbye, Pop. And that was all.
Oh.
Goodbye, Pop.
Bye, Pop. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for molesting my sister. See you later.
Do you think anyone's ever, like, when they're about to get the death penalty, like, whatever administration, that they've ever said toodles as their last thing? I think that's ever...
I think
just curious.
Oh, who is he was a gangster in the, like, fuck, what was his name? I can't think of it, but I know he told the executioner, like, hurry the fuck up.
That's the way to go.
I love that.
I kind of like that.
I can't remember
I
who
always
it is.
think about, like, whenever they're like, oh, they, you know, they were declared to be, like, legally sane. I always wonder what would happen if, like, we were formally, you know, analyzed to see if we're, you know, legally sane or not, just how that might work out.
Oh, that might come out in the wash.
What the outcome would be. They're like, yeah, you're not fit to stand trial. And I'm like, what?
No, I'm a functioning adult. I do things like you should probably go sit down. And
they're like, here's
meds.
a rubber chicken. They pat me on the head. They're like, all right, off you go.
You go on your way. Boop, boop.
Look at you. Boop, 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 boop. All
First
right.
door to the right, the room with all the padding.
Yeah, that's, and I'm like, bounce house. All right.
They're like exhibit A.
Well, 2 awful Marys in a row. This is
Okay, hold on. I have a little bit more.
Ooh.
Okay, so he says goodbye, Pop, and that was all. The older Applegate related to reporters. So now that's Applegate, he's executed. John Crichton visited Mary and was allowed to embrace her and kiss her for the last time, which is just gross and also really dysfunctional.
Yeah.
He was never sure that Mary had killed his own mother. I think that's supposed to say his own father. I'm sorry, that's my typo. John broke down and wept openly. As he left, he threatened to shoot any reporter who asked him a question. In the waiting room, as reporters assembled to enter the witness room, Agnes Applegate, now 13, and Ruth Crichton, now 15, the object of Everett's sexual desires, munched on hamburgers.
Oh,
I hope they got like the McDonald's 2-burger meal.
what?
They both had like the 2 burgers and some fries and a soda.
I hope it wasn't like White Castle. They're like, here, eat your mini burgers.
You get the mini one. No,
So
so
your
they,
sweaty burgers.
and so they sat there and ate some hamburgers.
Because
this.
the one girl, she just lost her mother and her father. As much of a like raging shitbag he was, or maybe they both were. It's like,
And she's 13. She's been molested by her father. She's witnessed the rape of her friend Ruth. And her mom didn't deserve to die, but by all accounts was not a very nice person.
and now she's off to the foster care system, which is
Yay.
horrible then and horrible now.
At
You two
11
really
p.m.
Rays of sunshine.
I
Just love
know,
it.
right?
Yes.
At 11 p.m., Mary Frances Crichton, 38, was wheeled into the execution chamber at Sing Sing prison. She was wearing a pink nightgown and a black satin kimono. The back of her head was partially shaved where the electrodes would be attached. For weeks, Mary Frances had told doctors that she was paralyzed from the waist down and could not walk. It was reported that she was actually in a coma, induced by hypodermic injections of morphine. That's speculation, by the way. She made no sounds, nor did she utter any last words. No one will ever know for sure if she was aware of the execution. Her hands were wrapped by a set of rosary beads that were given to her by the prison staff. Outside the room, professional executioner Robert G. Elliott prepared to kill his third female. At 11:04 p.m., the deadly current was sent through her body, and within moments, she was dead. With the odor of burning flesh still hanging in the air, Applegate entered the chamber. Wait, that jumped. Sorry. Okay, so she and Applegate are coming in. Okay, so she's willed in. Yeah, they're going to be executed together. I'm sorry, I kind of missed that. So he's coming in, she's in there, and they're both going to be executed. So she's willed in, he's there, she's dead, and then he comes in. And in his death, he had this to say. These were his last words, quote, "Before God, gentlemen, I'm absolutely innocent of this crime, and I hope the good God will have mercy on my soul, of Martin W. Littleton." That's July 17th, 1936 from the New York Daily News. So let's rewind 24 hours before that. So the day before Mary Frances died, guess what card she pulled? Can anybody guess? Anybody? She's supposed to be in a coma, remember, and like paralyzed from the waist down, but 24 hours before she died, she converted to the Catholic religion and was baptized by the prison chaplain, Father McCaffrey.
Was that supposed to save her?
Yeah.
Huh. Definitely.
She was asked if she wanted. What?
Oh, when you said like, guess what card she pulled? So I'm going, was there a magician involvement that I missed? Like I missed all
Ace
of it.
of Spades.
Was she reading tarot cards? Like I thought I missed a whole part, and I was like, what was it? The Seven of Wands. I don't remember what any of these are. What was it?
You were on another plane this episode.
Yeah, you are.
Sorry. I don't know what time zone I'm in. It's fine.
It's fine. You've had a day.
We'll give you that. You have that card. You're good. So before she's executed, so like the day before she converts to Catholicism, the prison chaplain baptizes her because you can't go to heaven unless you're baptized. She wiped the tears from her eyes and spoke these words: "I have done many wrong things, but I know God will forgive me." And you know what? I can do that better in a Jersey accent. "I know I have done many wrong things, but I know God will forgive me. I was a good wife and mother, and whatever I did for him and the children. I hope they will have a better life than me." And then she died.
Okay.
So that is the story of Bloody Mary Frances Crichton, who killed her brother, her father-in-law, and her daughter's rapist's wife.
I wonder because you could see the father-in-law and the brother for the money and whatever else, but like, why did she kill the wife?
I don't know. I feel like once you're on a roll like that, once you've killed like twice, it becomes probably pretty easy. Like that initial like killing people is bad. That's gone now. That's over. And she's like, "That's annoying. Like I'm gonna from
what I've read, I think that her and Mr. Applegate had very much been in cahoots. Like it was like, "Hey, I want to get rid of my wife. I want to continue to rape your daughter and mine, and she's taking up 75% of the bed. How do we take care of this?" And she's like, "Oh, I have an idea. I've already done this twice before. It's easy. Follow my lead." I feel like that's kind of the progression of events in that situation.
They all sound like gross individuals. Those poor kids.
This is just, yeah. I'm feeling great about humanity. I always appreciate you two for helping me with that. Yes.
Well, spooky Sunny, I'm glad we saved you for last because I need it.
All right, we're gonna bring it back up.
Let's bring it back up.
Bring it back up a little bit. I mean, I don't know if these things are funny necessarily, but I again, when I was a child, I was very easily freaked out, weirded out, scared. And so I really could not, like, anything that even was remotely supernatural, couldn't look at it, would totally freak out. So my friends, of course, took immediate advantage of that. And whenever I was at sleepovers, we would be lying in the dark, you know, only hearing each other breathe. And they're like, want to hear a story? And I'm like, so, yeah, so I had all these really bizarre terrors based off of this, but I'm going to tell you two. One, which you probably know, and I do not have necessarily like origin sources for these, although I can guess, I think, for one of them. These are just from my brain, what I remember. These are the stories. And so I'm going to start with the one that you all probably know, and I'm going to put on my spooky hood.
Yes.
To tell the story of we actually have two Jennies that I'm going to be talking about today. And so I'm going to tell you the story of Jenny and Billy. And so Billy was madly in love with a girl named Jenny, and he thought that she was the kindest, most beautiful girl in the entire world, and she was the light of his life, and he asked her to marry him. He was looking at her right after she had enthusiastically said yes, and saw that, well, he'd seen this before, really took notice of something around her neck, which was a red ribbon. He said, "Why do you always wear that red ribbon?" Jenny said, I just can never take off the red ribbon. It's not important, sweetie. This is a wonderful day. They were married. They moved in. Billy adored her, and he bought Jenny tons of party dresses. But regardless of what dress he bought her, she always wore the same red ribbon. Then Jenny found out that they were going to have a baby. He was so delighted. And as she was going in to give birth, she grabbed him and said, "Billy, you make sure they know not to take off my red ribbon." He was kind of irritated, but he said that he promised they'd make sure that they wouldn't. So after baby was born, he went to her and said, "I bought you a beautiful new necklace to celebrate our new baby. I'd love to put it on you." He started to reach for the red ribbon, and she smacked his hand away. She said, "I'll take this and make it into a bracelet. But I cannot take off my red ribbon." So years and years and years passed of this, 20 years into their marriage. They're laying together in bed at night, and Billy was just overcome with curiosity. He looked over at Jenny, sleeping sweetly, red ribbon still around her neck. He said, "I have to know. I deserve to know. I have been good to her for 20 years. He reached over slowly, started to untug the ribbon, watched the ribbon as it slowly unknotted and came apart. The red ribbon gave way. Pop! Jenny's head fell off. What? It rolled on the ground. It stared at him, and she said, "I told you to listen to me."
Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Oh.
Don't pull the ribbon.
Don't touch other people without their consent.
I literally asked for one thing. I told you to one thing. So I hate it. Even when I knew the story, they would always, and it would just creep me out. And then I'd be thinking about the head sitting next to me all night, just with the ribbon undone.
And then it's talking to you.
It's talking to you.
Not to take the red ribbon.
I told you not to take the ribbon off. So anyway, that was story number one that I used to hear at sleepovers in the dark. Well, it was just complete pitch black. Love thinking about that. The second one, so as you all know, I have an irrational fear of dolls.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I'm still terrified of them. Hasn't gone away. And I had a friend who was very aware of this, and she used to tell me this story, and I want you to imagine that we are laying together.
Okay.
And it is dark. And
Okay.
she said, I needed to tell you a story about a girl named Jenny. Jenny loved her dolls. She loved her dolls so much, in fact, she always received them for Christmas and birthdays and presents from everyone. But one year for her birthday, she received the biggest, most beautiful doll of them all. It was porcelain, it was beautifully painted, and the dress that the doll was wearing was stunning. She was overcome with joy at her beautiful doll, played with it all day. The eyes, they almost looked like they sparkled, glinted, like they were looking straight at her. As she was ready to go to bed, she set her doll up in the living room, brushed her teeth, and got in her bed to go to sleep. Everything was dark in her room. Everything was dark in the house. Her parents were sleeping in their room. And then she heard a voice. Jenny, why did you leave me in the living room? Jenny, I'm in the living room. Jenny, I'm in the hallway. Jenny, I'm in the office. Jenny, I'm in the hallway again. Jenny, I'm in your brother's room. Jenny, I'm in the hallway. Jenny, I'm at your door. Jenny, I'm in your room. Jenny, I'm by your bed. Jenny, I cut off your head.
What made it creepier is if it was like happening that fast, like I'm here.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So these two stories kept me up so many nights, and just me, because I always slept with the light on and no one else did. So I would be in a pitch black room in an unfamiliar house, just be like,
Yeah.
dolls in the bed. So,
I just want to go home.
So if anyone else has any spooky stories that they enjoyed being traumatized as children, would love to hear them.
Well, I have an anecdote about little girl sleepovers. I think I must have been in the 4th grade. So what does that put us at, like 10 years old? About
9, 10, yep.
Yeah, 9, 10-ish. So I was probably 9 at the time. And we would go sleep over. There was there was a big group of us. It was like 8 to 10 girls, like all these little 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds would sleep over. And we were at one of the girls' house. We'll call her Laura. And lots of us that were in the Girl Scouts together, and we were sleeping over in her living room. And she kind of had this, I was always fascinated with her because she lived in a city and I didn't. Like, she had sidewalks and like neighbors. And like it was really cool to go over to her house because that's not where I was, like, that's not how I was raised. And so it was really neat, like, to live in this like kind of different, to go spend the night in this house. And we would all sleep in the living room. And it was like that cool like 3-story house, but it was like the living room was like sunken in, and then like the second story was like a little bit lower, and then the third story was like a little bit higher. Does that make sense? Like a tri-level, like not like a true 3-story, but like a tri-level.
Like it's a split level.
A split level. Thank you. That's where I'm going with that. A split level. Thank you. So we're all sleeping in the living room, and we get put to bed, and it's pitch black, and we have like the sofa sleeper out, and there's girls sleeping on the floor, and there's girls sleeping in the recliner, and Laura like sits up and she's like, oh, I just had a nightmare, and we were all like getting kidnapped and like gonna get murdered, and oh my god, okay, I gotta go back to sleep. And so like she would lay back to sleep, and then like we'll call her Monica would wake up and be like, oh my god, I just had the same dream, but we were gonna get kidnapped and murdered, and like they already had us in the van, and they were driving us down the road, and they had us all together, and like, okay, I gotta go back to sleep.
What the fuck?
And then like 10 minutes later, like we'll say Jenny would wake up and be like, oh my God, we were in the van and we were like driving down the road and like we get to this house.
Your friends.
And then we were like, oh my God, I had that same dream too. And oh my God, I had that same dream too. And like, it was just this like hive mentality of like scary dreams, just like feeding off of each other's like hysteria and drama and ridiculousness as 10-year-old little girls. But we were convinced that this was like a shared nightmare, and none of us slept that night. We were all terrors the next day for our poor parents because we hadn't slept in like 24 hours because we were all being very dramatic till like 7 a.m. It was just completely ridiculous. And our little,
oh my God,
like,
now we're at the drop-off point. They're asking for ransom.
Oh my God, they're gonna take it. Oh. It was all very, very dramatic.
Ew, who made this note? They spelled ransom wrong.
Exactly.
Not even high quality
and their
kidnappers.
handwriting is terrible.
Ew.
What do you mean you only won 10 grand for us? I'm worth at least 50.
Excuse me, I'm
somebody.
priceless.
My daddy is a millionaire. He's gonna pay whatever you want.
Didn't Alexander the Great do that? He got kidnapped and they asked for like a certain amount of money. He was like, I am worth way more than that. That's insulting.
I hadn't heard that, but that tracks for him. Definitely tracks.
Well, ladies, that's all the sleepover spookiness that I have for you.
I loved it. That's good. Yeah, that was good.
Lots of headless people.
There was a theme there.
There was a theme, definitely. Don't pull the ribbon.
Don't.
Yes,
don't pull. I see for one.
I should have undone this ribbon slowly as I was, and then I would have been like.
Well, you can find us on Facebook at Bourbon Wine and True Crime and Instagram at Bourbon Wine and True Crime, or you can send us an email at bourbonwineandtruecrime@yahoo.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
We're gonna make
you guys for listening to our Bloody Mary episode for spooky season. We will be back next time with some other horrific true crime tales.
Yes, we got one more spooky episode before we go back to the true crime.
That's right, one more spooky episode.
The next one is actually like spooky and also true crime, so it'll be a nice way to end spooky season, unfortunately.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.